Hour number 2, like to welcome our video audience to Idaho Sports Talk, courtesy of the Dollar Loan Center. Appreciate those guys. Prater the Ballgame in studio with Boise State Athletic Director Jeramiah Dickey. Appreciate your flexibility, Jeremiah, and rescheduling this, and looking forward to talking about some very important stuff with you on Idaho Sports Talk. How are you today, Jeremiah?
I'm doing well, guys. I'm headed to the Eagle Rodeo after this. See my kid do a little mutton busting.
Nice.
So
I knew it was going to come up today. That's awesome.
We're 50-50 on whether or not he's getting on this animal, but we'll see. He seemed excited this morning.
Big rodeo background. I mean, you guys are Texas guys. Then
I come from a rodeo family, so my family very much involved, but I was always playing sports. So
Gotcha.
missed out on it, but we're embracing it. The kids love it, and we're excited.
A rodeo family. Okay. You want to get excited?
I want to ask Johnny first before we get. Do you even know what mutton busting is?
I don't. I'm sorry. And I've been to a lot of rodeos. I've come from Eastern
It's the
Oregon.
best part of the rodeo.
I used to have to write about them. And when you're on the rodeo beat, which is kind of a pain in the butt to begin with, although I love rodeo because cowboys love to tell their stories.
Okay.
But it's kids riding baby animals, baby sheep, baby lambs.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's basically it's saddle bronc with a kid and a sheep.
Yeah.
How do you think your kid's gonna do?
He's tough as nails, but he was struggling with we were making him wear boots and jeans, and all my kids they don't like wearing jeans. So he's upset. And then he told me, Dad, I don't want to ride a sheep, quote unquote. I want to ride a horse. Yeah. And I said, well, buddy, you got some work to do. So we'll see.
We'll plan the work.
Yeah,
right?
That's right.
I love it, man. Okay, Jeremiah Dickey, Boise State at Notre Dame, October 4th, 2025. How the heck did we get here, man?
Yeah, it's progress. Scheduling, and I know we've talked about scheduling a lot. There are a lot of nuances to it, and it's not as easy as maybe fans and others think it is. It's not just a lot of calls. There's a lot that what's seen publicly isn't necessarily what's happening behind the scenes in terms of what people have scheduled, and there's just movement, realignment created a lot of it, and then you also have to realize that you're inheriting a schedule that in many ways was 5 to 10 years out from when I got here. And so you're trying to find your spots where you don't necessarily want back-to-back away games. And some of it you're still trying to fix. Some of it you're trying to monetize. Some of it you're trying to save money. And all to say, I'm really excited about this. Like, this has created with what I feel is an extremely important national brand in terms of us. And then to be able to partner with them on it. And one of the individuals I was working with, Ron Pallis, who you guys probably remember from his Notre Dame days,
former quarterback.
Yeah, he was a coach at Akron when I was there, and it created a much easier process. So we're just really, really happy we were able to get it done. Those type of things, it could take months. That happened pretty quickly, and we're excited about it.
How did it start? I mean, you call Ron Pallis, he talked to you. You knew they had an opening, so you were only targeting schools that had openings. You were trying to get the biggest one. I mean, JD, take us through it.
At some point, I need to do something with you guys and walk you through kind of our process. And I have this database, and it keeps track. And a lot of other ADs utilize it in programs, and it keeps track of what everyone's schedule is, what games are being worked on, what dates are available, and you can pull what teams are available at this point in time, and then that's where the relationships come in, and whether or not someone wants to play you, and who else they're looking at, and their coach at the time, and you're trying to predict what a team is going to be 5-10 years out. We have games scheduled in 2035, I think, right now.
Yeah,
like, who knows what this industry is going to look like, especially with what we're navigating right now. So with something like that, you can pull up who potentially has availability. Notre Dame is a much different beast because of its brand, and they're just different. And through the relationships that we have and the connections within the industry, one thing leads to another, and you get connected, and it's like there's mutual interest. And so really appreciate them and going through this process with them, nothing but professional, and it's Notre Dame, and
right. I know.
That's something that it didn't surprise me at all, but it was really cool to go through that process. And I've never been to a game there. I've been to Notre Dame. I've not been to a football game, and it was just really cool. And I know our fan base is excited. I know it's going to be a lot of fun, but I also know that And I'm a 1-0 mentality. I'm worried about our first game of this year, and that's what concerns me now. And we'll get to 25, but momentum is important. And you saw strategy and how things were announced, and App State, and we're continuing to grind and find a way forward and create something that Bronco Nation can be proud of. And it's always what's next.
Boise State Athletic Director Jeramiah Dickey in studio right now. We're talking Notre Dame. We're going to talk non-conference football. We're going to talk about North End Zone, and we got a couple of other questions for him at the end. And when you negotiate with Notre Dame, I would assume that it's a no-brainer for you in terms of the excitement. The $1.35 million, the 5,000 tickets, I thought those are both really healthy numbers. What was the reaction when you went to Spencer and said, and I would imagine the conversation started before you finalized the deal, but guys got to be fired up for his program, personally, the players, the buzz. This is the kind of thing that lifts an entire football community.
Oh, for sure. And you all know Spencer well enough. He very much has adopted what's next and whatever's in the best interest of the program. And that includes the student athlete experience and things that we can recruit to and potentially monetize differently. And this allows us to do that. And so he was excited. I think as we look at last year and look at what Liberty did, and now that we have this seat at the CFP table, and there was this national conversation around Liberty or SMU and comparing schedules. And there isn't, I said earlier, there's a lot of nuances to scheduling. There isn't a locked in method. And we saw that even with basketball this year. Even though we're following the net, even though the quad ones, quad twos, so on and so forth, we end up getting in a playing game, which still bothers me, but it is what it is. You look at football, it's very similar. How Liberty was able to elevate their program is very different maybe than scheduling models in the past. Why? Well, no one knows. There's a human component. There's obviously polls and whatnot. So we're always trying to, Spencer and myself, we're always working together on, all right, what do we need to do to truly position ourselves to have this CFP seat? There's a lot that has to happen, right? You got to win. You have to win your conference. You have to be the best of the rest in terms of the group of five. There's one seat that we're all fighting for. And so that's where, yes, I have preferences in terms of scheduling regional. Part of the regional preference is that it's double the cost to go to Georgia Southern this year than it is to go to Oregon.
Absolutely.
That impacts us. And when I'm making financial decisions as the CEO of a department, I'm deciding between my staff in many ways and how we're funding the department versus maybe a game and how far east it is. And so, yes, I would prefer not going east of the Mississippi, but I also understand there's value in going east of the Mississippi from a media standpoint. I want to get to Texas, but we're not always going to get to Texas. I want to play regionally for our fans. And there's some really good opponents and people within this community that are also supportive that helps us from a ticket sales standpoint. So Spencer is a part of those conversations, and you plan the work the plan. It's not always going to work out perfectly, and I can't guarantee you, I don't know who else is bigger than Notre Dame. I can't guarantee that we're going to be able to get, whoever the Texases and Georgias and Oklahomas and the traditional blue bloods. But this was something that was important to us. Spencer was on board, and as was our staff. And I know our student athletes and department were excited, and so far Bronco Nation as well.
We certainly want to dive into some of those non-conference philosophies. Real quick, one more last question for me on Notre Dame. With as much detail as you possibly have right now, and I know it's early, including timelines, speak to the fans. I'm sure you're getting 1,000 requests. How can I get a ticket? Everybody wants to know. Everybody wants to go to this game. You can sell 20,000 tickets for this game. How does Joe fan get involved, starting with the highest of highest with BAA priority?
It starts there. It's BAA and ultimately our season tickets have a BAA donation attached to it, but it's buy season tickets. It's 6 games, 6 sellouts, and I'm not going to come off that soapbox. We have a product, and it is a value, and we've created an elite experience. Can it improve? Absolutely, and we're going to continue to work on that, like a new sound system and so on and so forth. But buy season tickets. That gets you in line. And I can't guarantee there's only so many tickets that we have. Yep. I think you guys have the contract and probably have talked about that. But buy season tickets, and that's important, and that's that momentum we're talking about, and that's where I'm concerned with right now is 24.
It's Jeramiah Dickey on Idaho Sports Talk, Prater in the Ball Game. How hard is it to find a P4 team that's going to come play you on the blue?
Extremely difficult right now.
What do they say?
Right now, they don't have to. Right? They can buy teams, and they're buying FCS opponents. They're buying FBS or a group of 5 opponents like us. and they don't necessarily have to travel. That was the decision that I had to make around Oregon. They could have canceled the contract, or we take a bye game. Well, it checked a lot of boxes, and they were great to deal with. It wasn't an ultimatum per se, but this is a business that we're operating. And so you make those decisions, and Oregon doesn't have to go play somewhere else. They can play at home, and now because they're in the Big Ten, they're fine. They're going to position themselves for a run at the CFP as well. So, it is becoming more and more challenging. And, I think as you hear a lot in the industry, the expenses and not just the revenues, but the expenses and trying to stay more regional, trying to cater to your fan bases. But also there's this piece of trying to create matchups that are of value. And you look at App State.
Yeah.
That made sense, and really appreciate Doug Banks there and navigating that with him. That's something that it made sense for both of us. But Group of Five is so much different than navigating the Power Four. And really it's Power Two and then the other two and then the Group of Five, right? You continue to have this separation. Doesn't mean we're not going to try, but what scheduling was back when Coach Pete was here and others, it is not that today. It is a completely different ball game. Budgets are completely different. Expenses are completely different. And we're going to continue to do what we can to control what we can control and continue to have success. And that's something that is a non-negotiable for me.
Cincinnati is the only Power Four school on the home schedule as it sits now. I'm not sure how accurate this schedule is as you continue to work through the years, and that's 2028 down the road. Let's move on to one other thing that I saw you, and you've been very vocal and very open on Twitter and talking to fans. And I get in there and I'm a creeper. And one of the things you said was
that doesn't surprise me.
Well, it's either that or a text message to you at midnight when I'm goofing around.
You can do that too. That's probably better. But.
Well, okay. I'll notes to Prater, note to self. You said that scheduling is your least favorite thing to do. And because of everything you just described, you're here to raise the profile and raise money and take care of student athletes and coaches in the Boise State athletic family. Scheduling's a pain in the butt. Have you ever thought about a lieutenant, a number two person, a scheduling expert? Football is the only sport in college where the athletic director is in charge. Every other sport's in charge of their scheduling. I get it. It's money. Should somebody else be doing it at Boise State?
No. Right now, actually, I just took it over this semester. And so, it is something that I think requires a lot of time, effort, and energy.
Yeah.
And
is that the reason why it's so the least favorite part of your job?
It was the one thing that I could not wait to do when I was rising in the ranks and to be a sport program administrator.
Yeah.
And usually there is a sport program administrator that has that. I am now the sport program administrator for football.
Okay.
And so that's part of the responsibilities that come along with that. So I've taken it. It's nothing against how it was set up before. It's just what we're navigating. And that's also important. I'm onboarding a new head coach and having gone through what we did last season. And so it's really created some cool opportunities among, between Spencer and myself. And you're right. Like scheduling has traditionally been held by the individual head coach or whoever, for basketball Burns, I think he's talked about it here.
He does. Yeah.
But there's also a change taking place in our industry. I've talked about women's basketball scheduling today with our staff and our head coach, who is awesome. I've talked to Cody deals a lot as a sport program administrator with men's basketball and Burns. So it's not just one person making these decisions in the areas that very much impact us. When I say there's a lot of hats that I wear. When you think about the things, and you all know me well enough, I like to control things. Because I can put us in a position for an outcome that is in our best interest. Scheduling is one of those things that is very difficult to control. Yeah. And when you look at the puzzle that we're putting together, and I'm right now scheduling out 5-10 years out, who knows what our industry looks like 10 years from now? Gosh, think about how much it's changed over the last 3 years, much less the last 15. And so that's something that can be challenging. But when I say I don't, it's the least favorite. I have a lot of things that I do on a daily basis. It just takes a lot of time, energy, and effort that I'm committed to. And you're seeing that play out in action with App State and Notre Dame. And there's going to be more down the road. But that is a part of the job that takes up, not necessarily the time, because I'm willing to do the time. And I think you guys know me well enough about that. But there's just not much you can control in it. It's not the old days where I would have a list of AD cells and I would call them or email them and say, hey, I have these openings on mine. Do you have them on yours? And you would, Google ESPN and say, all right, here's everything updated. And it is not that way anymore.
Wow.
It is a completely different process. And ultimately you got to adapt. And that's something that we're doing. And we're finding success. How I define success, Bronco Nation and others may not define it as success, but ultimately my job is to make decisions that are in the best interest of this program. And that includes the financial implications, whether it's expense or revenue driven. And I'm going to continue to do that to the best of my ability. And I think as the industry professionalizes and changes, that's something that is, maybe it's still a little, different than maybe the NFL model or another model out there. The NFL does the scheduling.
Yeah.
We're having to call people and see what fits. And they're also doing the same thing. They're looking at, the number of teams that call, like East Carolina, that was scheduled probably 10 years ago. And they called and said, JD, does this make sense for you? I'm like, not necessarily. And does it make sense for you? No. I'm like, all right, well, let's go a different direction.
Smart.
Houston, you had mentioned, Cincinnati. Houston is still, we're working through the contract. It's not on the schedule yet because we're once again working through where does it fall on our schedule and can I balance it out a home and away, because I always want 2 home games in our non-conference. And so and then potentially trying to work on a third, but the third would be an FCS.
Yeah.
And so there's some different things at play. And then there's also this piece that we used to be counted as a Power 5. Well, the industry has changed. So we don't necessarily check that box anymore. So now teams like in the Big 12, they're having to go out and get another P4. Well, we're not a P4. And so it's more difficult to schedule the Big 12 teams. So you have to get out in front of that. Then in turn, it's more difficult to get them home and home. So you look at some of the schedules we've had in the past with Oklahoma State, home and home. That was pre all of this. You look at the schedules in the future and why I looked at the Houston deal and said, all right, that contract was signed before I got here. Actually, I think it was signed. I think I started those conversations with Kurt when I was at Houston.
You were in on it
all
on the
reality.
other end. Yeah.
And then Hunter Yurachek is the one who moved it forward because then I went to Baylor. That contract was signed as a group of 5 contract. The buyout's $500,000. I have $1 million problems. I don't have $500,000 problems.
Yeah.
So when I look at it, I'm like, all right, I can monetize that, and a sellout game for us is anywhere between $650,000 and $1 million, depending on what opponent it is. I can get more out of keeping that home game than taking $500,000. So it's in our best interest to try to move that home and home down and work with the other team, as opposed to draw a hard line in the sand and say, no, we need to play here. Well, that's something that is just part of the relationships and the conversation. I appreciate Houston navigating this with me, and that's something that in the future, if we can get this contract done, you'll see a home and home. But those are the type of decisions that are being made.
Back with Jeramiah Dickey, we want to talk the North End Zone Project. Go nowhere. Idaho Sports Talk coming right back.
From the Beacon Plumbing Traffic Studios, this is Ticket Traffic. especially big in the 2C. Shout out to all our friends in Canyon County. Thanks for listening to Sports Radio The Ticket.
What questions do you have for Boise State Athletic Director Jeramiah Dickey? 208-424-9300. He is in studio, our rowpaint.com studio on Prater in the ball game. JD, want to transfer over to some of the North End Zone project stuff, and I guess I'll just start fairly broad with you. What do you want Bronco Nation to know and understand most about this project?
Like most things we do, it all ties into What's Next initiative, and it's not just for revenue generation. It weighs on me, guys. Like, I know what Bronco Nation stands for. I know the blue collar piece is important, and that was a topic of conversation as we've had multiple conversations, and this has been a grind to get to this point, and not all of it I can control. And so moving our North End Zone people, I probably have the best relationship with those people because they're in the tunnel and I see them and I hug them and high five them. And I know our players do. But I also, once again, going back to some of the scheduling decisions, I'm fiscally responsible for our institution and department.
Right.
And we have to make decisions on ultimately what's best and for long-term for Broncos and Bronco Nation. So one, it doesn't fall on, like, it's heavy on me in terms of moving them, but I also know we have a lot of other seats. We're creating price points that everyone will have an opportunity to be in the stadium. And then this facility, it doesn't just allow us to run other outside events and monetize our operations 365 days a year to give me the resources to invest back into our program. It also extends our concourse, adds extra restrooms, concession stands. We know that there's an East Side problem, but that is not easily fixed under our current setup. And initially when I got here, I wanted to do the East Side, but the cost of doing business has risen. And the process of getting a project from fruition to conclusion is not necessarily an easy process. And so pivoting to the North End Zone was something that we could manage, that we could monetize, that would relieve the pressure on the east side of the stadium. Once we added alcohol, people couldn't leave the stadium, and that created challenges for us. And so it checks a lot of boxes. And then maybe most important that maybe people don't care about as much, but it provides us an opportunity to serve our student athletes differently, which will also provide us an opportunity to recruit differently. One of the number one things that you hear in this industry is the food or lack thereof within the student athlete circles. And so that's something that rises for us. We want to create an elite nutritional space, and Sam and Pepper and a lot of our staff, they're doing a really good job in terms of serving our student athletes, but we want to provide them an opportunity to have a one-stop shop for all student athletes, and then also provide our teams opportunities to eat together and break bread. I think that's important from a culture standpoint. So this facility is going to accomplish all of the above. And that really excites me. It's also going to fill the rest of our stadium with those people that are in those seats. It's also going to create hopefully an unbelievable South End Zone.
Yeah.
When you look at band and we've talked about the student piece, and there's still some different opportunities that we have as this project comes online and as we continue to grind forward. But I'm really excited. I can't thank Nate and Cody and our teammates for the work that they're doing. It's been almost a weekly thing for the past year plus, and really started 3.5 years ago. And, but I feel it's going to be worth it. And, for the first time outside of the day to day, but when you see those renderings and what it could be, that's epic. And that's what we're shooting for. And that's what Bronco Nation deserves. And it opens up so many opportunities from a pipeline for our community. We have a lot of people moving into our community, a lot of, they're not necessarily Broncos, but a lot of affluent people. And that rises for us. That's how we're funding this machine. And we're going to continue to find solutions for the resources that we need to pay our offensive defensive coordinator more, to invest into the student athlete experience. We are not going to stop. We're going to continue to fight. And my job is to make sure we're positioned to do so.
That's a perfect lead into my question. It's a $65 million project listed now. I'm going to guess, just because that's the way construction goes, it'll be 70 by the time you put a shovel in the ground in January. And get good luck and knock on wood on that. How are you going to pay for this specifically beyond the premium seating, where you rely on the fans? Yes, there is a lot of affluent money in our market right now, and that's going to fund a lot of this through this premium seating plan that you have put out there. But how can you pay for this without leaning on them too much?
Well, it's going to be a combination of things, like most things that we do. There's going to be a percentage that's bonded. There's going to be a percentage that's fundraised for, naming rights, sponsorships, those type of things. There's going to be the premium space, and then there's also the outside events. So it's the pro forma. We were pretty clear. There's nothing guaranteed in any of this, right? But it's risk reward, and I see the reward, and it's worth the risk. And I feel confident in our team and Bronco Nation, and that we're going to be able to sell this out, that it's going to result in creating a different level of perception of our program. That, when you look at not having a capital campaign 10 plus years, not having a shovel and ground on a facility 10 plus years, at a higher level, we can never settle. We have to keep going.
Yeah.
And this is something that I feel closes in that end zone, and it starts truly looking like one of those elite college football stadium with the power of the blue and our fan base. What can stop us? And we're going to continue to push forward.
Corporate patches are coming to uniforms for coaches and players. Corporate logos are going to start showing up on college football fields here anytime soon. All that stuff is happening. We'll figure out the timeline. You've also talked about one of the new trends in college athletics when it comes to money is getting into business with private equity and letting private equity invest in athletic departments. It's going to happen at the Power 2, Power 4 level all over the place. You've said you're interested, but due diligence comes first because there's a lot of tricky stuff that comes with that. You feel comfortable getting in bed with private equity at this point in your career?
I wouldn't say I feel good or bad about it. I think we're still in the due diligence process. We're very fortunate. I have a lot of donors and who I call friends that are operating in this space. So, this is not something that obviously I'm educated on or experienced in. And so I know enough about myself. I'm going to ask the questions, and I'm going to go to the people that have the answers. And when I see private equity, I see opportunity, but I also, what does ownership look like from private equity standpoint?
Sure.
That's uncomfortable. I think that's a big hurdle to get over, but there's also private credit or other opportunities, whether it impacts facilities or are we able to bond anything else? I don't know. I don't control a lot of that. So though that potentially could create an opportunity for, say, the east side of the stadium or Extra Mile, where we're looking at more credit and just getting outside investors that maybe aren't necessarily in Boise or in Idaho, but are national if we can find the right partner. There are things that we can do. We have to run out every ground ball. That's where we're at financially. And when you look at what we're navigating as the lowest funded, athletic department in our conference, but takes the highest percentage from the institution, I understand what Bronco Nation's expectations are. I fully get it. That's why I'm here. We cannot afford to stop. We have to run out these ground balls. We have to find solutions, and that is a big part of my job.
I bet your kids run out all their ground balls in Little League. I just bet they do. They hear that speech every morning
they do.
When they're eating.
They hear a lot of other things too that they shouldn't say, and my wife gets upset at me, but I can't
JD,
say it on air.
We told you we'd keep you a half hour, not going to keep you a minute longer. You got to get to the Eagle Rodeo, but really appreciate your time in studio. This has been a lot of fun.
Hey, thank you guys. I always enjoy coming in and would much rather be here in person. So I appreciate you guys, and go Broncos.
Let's go, JJ.
Thanks for making us smarter. And I'm going to start sending you those midnight text messages.
Yeah. Now, if you want to become the next Boise State football season ticket holder, we're looking for caller number 9 right now. 208-424-9300. We're playing touchdowns for tickets next on Idaho Sports Talk.
Idaho Sports Talk with Prater in the Ballgame.